thanks so much to Gina and Mark for coming along today to talk about the services that International can offer us.
Thanks, Lee, and thanks for the invitation to come and speak today. My name is Gina Ferraro, and I manage international services within DET International. I'm here with my colleague Mark Pappas, and we provide opportunities to students, provide offshore opportunities for students amongst other things. So we're a small team, and we provide opportunities to collaborate with international partners. We have a number of student exchange programs, prizes, and also we offer teacher professional development for teachers in Queensland state schools. So can I just thank you for those that have joined us from elsewhere, not in Brisbane. And can I just get a show of hands? Do we have a mix of teachers here from private and state, or? Yeah. And what languages do we have speaking in the room?
German.
French, obviously.
Yeah.
Japanese.
And Chinese.
And Chinese. Great. Great. So that's wonderful. DET International has two parts. It has EQI, which is the organisation that manages inbound study tours, and you might be at some schools where international students are visiting and might come for a short program, 1 or 2 weeks, or you might have international students placed in your school for a long period of time. So that's all managed through EQI and international student programs. International Services manages the non-commercial part of what the department offers to students, and that's offshore experiences or exchanges with counterparts in the countries of the language they learn. So these are our key responsibilities: international relationships, managing. So we also manage the department's international MOUs. So we have MOUs with prefectures in Japan, with provinces in China, also with Italy, Switzerland, Germany, Taiwan, and Indonesia. We manage exchange programs under those MOUs, and we also provide advice to schools who want to enter into a sister school relationship with an international school. So often schools want to advance their language opportunities for their students by having a long-term relationship with the school overseas, and we can help to facilitate that. And we've provided you with some booklets, which is the guidelines that were developed by our area to help schools. And we can also provide a link to that, Lee, if you want to put it on the website, that people can download the PDF for those that aren't here today. We also manage the Premier's Anzac Prize. You may have heard that. So that's a non-language prize. Students apply to enter that, and they get to undertake a tour to Gallipoli and the Western Front. Our students will actually be arriving home this evening from their 16-day tour. So that's a wonderful program for students to give them not only that international experience, but to help them get to know a bit more about our history as well. So that program's been approved to run until 2018. So why do we exist? Why are we here to do what we do? Please come in.
Thank you, sorry.
No, that's no problem. Sure. So, the importance of global perspectives is becoming ever increasing. But as you know, the Queensland government's released its advancing education strategy, and a large part of that is international engagement and creating helping our students develop to become global citizens so they can gain employment not only in Australia but internationally or with internationally based companies. Also, learning a language, as you all know, helps understanding cultures. It broadens the perspective of our students who, living in an English-speaking country, are virtually isolated from other languages. So learning a language certainly broadens their horizons. And we leverage our international relationships to provide opportunities for students and teachers. So it's important that teachers who aren't native speakers of the language have opportunities to engage within the cultures of the language they speak, so they can not only understand the language better and the nuances of the language, but understand the culture. I mentioned the Advancing Education Action Plan. There's a link to that which has a strong focus on languages and international engagement. So if you haven't had the opportunity to read through that, I recommend that you do, because a lot of that actually supports the work you do and elevates the status of learning languages in schools greatly. So I highly encourage you to read that. Part of that is coding counts. There's a big push towards STEM subjects as well, and robotics. We're actually piloting 2 programs this year that incorporates the study of languages and STEM, and we'll be providing an offshore experience for students who would normally have the opportunity to travel overseas, who are students of both those subjects, more as a way to demonstrate that studying those 2 things, not choosing languages over STEM or choosing STEM over languages, but actually combining the 2, can provide incredible opportunities for employment and career paths down the track. We have our DET, international strategy, and of course the international education strategy that is federal initiative, which is being managed by Trade and Investment Queensland. Mark, I might get you to go through the next few slides and talk about our other engagements.
Yeah, that's right. So this represents our ever increasing range of our programs that we have overseas. So as Gina said, EQI is sort of more commercial activity, so they're focused on students coming to Australia, where in international services we look at Queensland students and Queensland teachers and international opportunities for them. So these are sort of some of the outbound destinations we have. So there's quite a few in terms of engaging with the with Japanese language. So Kobe is a student program. We'll sort of elaborate a bit more on these in the next couple of slides. Osaka is for teachers. Kagoshima is for students. Saitama teachers. Shanghai is for students, and a teacher gets to go along as well. But you can begin to see how broadly we're sort of expanding, and hopefully some other places will be sort of added to that list. And this is sort of old data. We'll hopefully get a bit more up-to-date data shortly, but in terms of 2015 languages and schools, you can see Japanese is still clearly out in front. We'd assume the numbers for Chinese to increase, and possibly even languages like Spanish, which I'm trying to learn, is possibly increasing as well. Yes.
Can I know what load is? I mean, that is no longer a terminology to be used, and it's annoying
That's right.
me really, really badly.
So that category is there for schools that say in the data that they teach a language, but they don't articulate what that language is.
Wow.
So it's an anomaly. So there's 141 schools that claim to teach a language, but they haven't identified what that language is.
So yeah, that gives you an idea of the programs we run. But we'll go on to the next page and probably speak with some more specifics about the program. So one of the ones we've got, which I think closes on Friday, the Iwasaki Sanyo Scholarship. So that's for Year 11 Japanese students at a language competition. There are quite a lot of applications for that. I'm not sure what the count is this year, but I think they expect sort of around about the 100 mark for 2 places. So it does sound difficult, but I guess that's pretty good odds, 1 in 50 of getting a Guernsey for that program. It's a month in Japan. So one participant is selected from central Queensland, and then the other participant is chosen basically from the rest of the state. In terms of Mandarin, the Shanghai International Sercices Youth Camp is a wonderful program. So last year I think we sent 6. I think this year we're sending 5 students from Queensland, and that application process, each school of teaching Chinese gets to nominate 1 student to apply for that. So that's really fantastic. It's very low risk because essentially we put the students on a plane, they arrive in China, they're picked up at the airport and taken to a university where they're accommodated, where they undertake all these fantastic activities. They meet over there, I think, the representatives of the 22 other sister cities that Shanghai have. So it's a really broad experience for the students to meet with not only native speaking Chinese or native Chinese speakers, but also students. I always go to say kids, but students will be from all over the world. So that's a fantastic program for that. That's currently closed and we're in the selection process for that one. But these programs generally run each year. In terms of opportunities in Asia, so for teachers and school leaders, so with the Iwasaki Senyo program, there's an opportunity for a teacher to chaperone and stay in Japan with to accompany the 2 students. In Shanghai, one teacher looks after 5 students, but they're provided with 2 bilingual sort of assistants to help out on that program. The PD opportunities, which are fantastic opportunities, are actually funded programs. So in Osaka, the Japan Foundation actually has a intensive Japanese language program. These obviously aren't relevant for everyone, but I'm sure if you know some colleagues who would be interested, please put them in touch with us. The Osaka program, I think, is 2 weeks. It happens just towards the end of the January school holidays, and you're actually staying at the Language Institute in Osaka and undertaking an intensive language course, but also having opportunities to meet your colleagues in Osaka and have discussions with them. The Saitama program is slightly different. That's not targeted at language teachers, so any other sort of teachers can apply to participate in that program where you go to Saitama and you're placed with a school, so you're observing classroom lessons, you're having discussions with Saitama teachers. A professional development program for teachers of Indonesian, that is very similar to the Osaka program, so there's a language course and it's actually undertaken at Semarang State University, so that's a wonderful opportunity. The teachers, we haven't run that, we ran that last year for the first time in a while because of travel levels to do with going to Indonesia, so they've come down to an acceptable level where we can send teachers of Indonesian. And they travel over there, and they were, from the feedback from the teachers, they were treated like kings and had a wonderful time over there. That program actually runs into school term, so we, in addition to funding the plane tickets and arranging accommodation with our colleagues in the Central Java Education Office, we also fund TRS payments to the school, and any of our programs, or generally a lot of our programs that do have that, the TRS is provided to the schools as well. Professional development Hubei China, that'll be running this year for the first time. That looks to be a similar program with a language course at the university also. And the School Leaders Study Tour to China, that's run in conjunction with the Confucius Institute, which is located at another university. Are we allowed to mention other universities? So that's located with the Queensland University of Technology. They have a Confucius Institute there, which is connected to the Jiangsu Provincial Department of Education in China. That's a program that you can actually contact us currently to get information to register interest. Then it'll be 10. That's aimed at principals, deputies. Please.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Just a question from one of our online participants. These various opportunities, this is from a teacher in a state school. How do you communicate these opportunities to schools, teachers and students?
Usually they're distributed to principals or teachers that we have contact details for.
So should teachers be providing you with their contact details? Because I think sometimes it doesn't always come through.
Yeah, that'd be the easiest way.
So we should be encouraging, like the MLTAQ, if we encourage our state school teachers to provide you with their email address to get on your email list. Is that possible?
Yes,
yeah, definitely.
yes. So at the end we'll have our email address and we'll be encouraging all teachers to contact us directly to ask us to provide them with information directly on these programs. We also put them on the education site, one portal, bulletin board, but we know teachers are extremely busy and don't get the opportunity often to look at that, so if you miss it on that day, you've missed it.
And MLTAQ, if we can
yes,
we can certainly
and we do,
as well.
and we have started to do that for some programs, so we'll do that more and more. Thank you.
So just wrapping up with the school leaders or the Asian opportunity. So School Leaders Study Tour to China. Sorry, that I should have mentioned at the top. That's for principals, deputies and heads of departments. We have had some inquiries from schools are starting to have business development managers and all these sorts of positions within schools. So they may be considered, but that's what that program is. So that's going to Jiangsu and meeting with the to education department representatives and also going into schools and those sorts of activities. So that's quite an exceptional program as well. That's another example of a program that's funded as well. So we're paying for tickets and then accommodations arranged through our counterparts over there. And then I think the next slide is European opportunities. The Queensland Swiss German Exchange is a popular program, so that's for Year 11 French, German and Italian languages. That actually comes at a cost to participants, so that's $3,600 per student. It's a reciprocal 9-week exchange, so there's quite a lot of administration that goes into that program. I believe that's closed now for this year.
Yes. Actually, I'm not sure. Yes, it has. It has. Yeah. We've done the matching, and the chaperones have been chosen for that one already. But if we run into difficulties towards the end, because it depends on the ratio of students per language as to how many chaperones we require. So we may, depending on how many applications we received, go out for a second round of interest for that if we need more chaperones. But you know, that's a great program. We have students go to Lugano and Geneva, so Lugano for Italian and Geneva in Switzerland for French, and they go to Dusseldorf in Germany for German. So they all travel together to Dubai, and then they split 3 different ways to go to the 3 locations.
Is the 3,600, is that with the airfare?
Yes, so that's the full cost to the student.
Apart from hosting?
Yes, apart from hosting.
And so in terms of, that's where the reciprocal arrangement comes in place. So we take application from Queensland students, and then counterparts in Germany and Switzerland take applications from their students. It's a bit of a matching process of getting an understanding of who will be suited to who, and then the overseas student will come and stay with a Queensland student, and then just after that they'll reciprocate by going and staying with that family.
Are we talking December that they're going over to Europe? Paris?
Yes, they'll go from November to basically I think it's from the 21st of November to the 22nd of January, so they actually miss a week of school depending on their school arrangements.
The Europeans come in July?
Yes, they do, that's right. So they'll be coming first. There's quite an involved matching process for that because the period is so long. You need to match students together who you know will be able to get on and have similar interests.
And your own school needs to be taking the children.
Absolutely.
And that's often the stumbling block.
Yes. So and the families have to be able to host as well. So yes, that's right.
Was that beep a question? Was that a beep? Oh, excellent.
That's good.
One of the other wonderful programs for students is the Stud Italia Prize, so Year 12 Italian language competition. 4 to 6 winners, and that's a 4-week program in Cividale, Italy. We've got a video for that, we might as well play that. Yeah. So this is from the participants who won last year.
So those students, they did, yeah. So they actually got to participate in 2015 in the Model UN Assembly. So the Convito Nazionale hosted the Model UN in Europe last year. So the Studitalia students were invited to represent a country and present a case. So that was an amazing experience. There were students from all over the world there representing different countries, and they actually got commended on a lot of their initiatives and their proposals. They actually came in late because the selection process was late, but because they were selected and they were being hosted by the Convito, they were invited to participate. So, there's amazing opportunities for students when they go overseas to not only engage in the language, but to undertake, different cultural activities and be immersed in, and not only meet with people of those countries, but other countries as well. The Convito itself is an international school, so they have students from all over the world there at any given time.
And Gina, we've got a question from our online viewers. Yes. Is there anything for the Spanish language? So
we are working on that. Spanish is the only language that isn't represented by our programs, and we're working hard on that because it's the next language in the list that Mark showed you earlier. It's the next language down in popularity and the number of schools that teach it. We're working on a program with Universidad de Monterrey to try and run an exchange program. We're in the beginning stages of that, and hopefully it would be nice to think that we could start that in first semester next year. We were trying to run it this year, but it looks like these things take a long time to organise. But we will be targeting, again, it will be for high school students, and we'll be targeting particular schools initially, but then open it up to all schools that teach Spanish. So watch this space, because we do hope to have something for Spanish language soon.
The next program, Gina mentioned it earlier, the Premier's Anzac Prize. I think that's probably one of the programs that has the most awareness. So that's for year 8 to 11s. 8 winners, 2 weeks in Turkey, Belgium and France. And obviously with one of the things we have to pay mind to is if there's events that may have a possible negative effect on the students. So that program's, I guess, a bit fluid.
So just on that, this year we actually didn't travel to Belgium. We changed our program in Turkey so that they didn't stay in Istanbul. They flew into Istanbul but then departed immediately for another area and did some touring of some historical sites further out. And then they flew straight to Paris. And in Paris they normally do quite an in-depth site visits, to Eiffel Tower and l'Arc de Triomphe. This year they just drove around and they did a cruise on the Seine instead, just to keep them out of the hot spots.
And in terms of opportunities for teachers in European countries, it's not as broad as the Asian opportunity. So generally it's chaperoning. So we sort of spoke on the Swiss-German exchange program in Switzerland and Germany. Gallipoli is quite a popular program for chaperoning because it's such a fantastic tour. And I think that's about it for our opportunities in Europe.
Can you elaborate on the chaperoning a little? Is it they just fly them over and fly back, or they stay there? Or?
Well, for the Swiss-German, because it's 9 weeks, that they don't get to stay 9 weeks. We have 2 lots of chaperones. The ones departing can stay up to a week, and as part of that, because it's still in the school term, so we only can afford to fund 1 week's TRS. On the other hand, the teachers who chaperone on the return leg can put in a proposal for professional development, and if they're undertaking some professional development or have other reasons to extend their stay, they can depart any time that's convenient to the school and then return with the students on the designated date. Other chaperones for the shorter programs, usually they stay with the students for the full time, and if the students are placed within a school, the teacher has the opportunity to also be placed within that school. Often they help with English language lessons, but they also develop their own language skills as well.
I think we're on to the next slide now.
Sorry. So that question about, should you put your name on a mailing list? If you want us to email you directly, please send us an email and just put what languages you're interested in. And you can ask any questions you like by emailing that address. Just today we've had a website update. So we actually have a web page on the Department of Education website now, which runs through these programs as well that are in the brochure. And I don't know if any of you state school teachers are coming to the State School Languages Conference on Friday and Saturday. So there's opportunity there for you to actually register your interest for a mailing list. We'll have sheets of paper that you can put your details on. So we're also offering 2 presentations there, one on sister schools and one on these international programs. And we'll have a student and a teacher presenting at the Helping Hand session.
And we've got a little list down here that anyone wants to put their name and email on, we can get in touch with you. And I've got some business cards on the table there too that anyone can grab and take back to relevant colleagues at school or keep yourself. Now, we don't manage this, but since we have the opportunity to speak to you, we thought we'd highlight this Showcase Awards for Excellence in Schools. So this year there's a new category, the Showcase Award for Excellence in Global Engagement. So there's more information available at this website. And then going on to the next page, there's actually regional coordinators that are allocated for schools to get in touch with and have a conversation in there about how to get your application together. So that's useful. On the next page, if you go to the website 2 slides ago, there's a link for guidelines. So if you click on there, you come to this page that actually has registration for web conferences. There's one tomorrow and a few more. And nominations close on the 30th of May. So on that website, there's a lot more information about the awards and what those, that category specifically is looking for. I'd have to say it closes on the 30th of May and there's a teleconference or a web conference on the 25th of May. So it sounds like you probably could get an application together in 5 days. So it might be worthwhile to get one in. So that's for the Showcase Awards for Excellence in Schools. I encourage everyone to...
For secondary only again? Or?
I believe so.
Can you give us a little bit more background on what would be included, what sort of things you...
So that, as Mark said, it's an award that's being run by a different part of DET International, so it's by international school programs. So that's the unit that places long-term international students in schools. So they have an award ceremony every year to recognise schools who take international students and I guess show best practice in that area. And the conference also provides a lot of information. That conference is actually at the end of this month, I think possibly on the 26th and 27th of May. So normally the people that get invited to that are your international student coordinators or head of languages. And this award is about recognising schools that actively have a globalisation program. So in terms of the finer detail, I can't provide that, but certainly have a look at the website, or you could direct your international student coordinator to that website. That's pretty well the end of our presentation. We have handed out brochures. Sorry, question? Yes, please.
So many questions. Very supported by all these people. So, who could we ask about teaching assistants? Is that?
Yes.
Yes.
Good question. Thank you for that. So, teacher assistants. We run that program through in cooperation with WEP, who is the World Education Program. It's a federally funded initiative. They run the SLAP program, which is a School Language Assistant program. We support that program by offering 50% funding to schools who haven't had that experience of having a teacher assistant in their school. At the moment, the languages supported by that program are Chinese, Italian, French, and one other. It's not Japanese though. Japanese is the language that we seem to have difficulty in getting teacher assistants. We're having problem finding an agency in Japan that can coordinate that. It may have something to do with the way their university system operates, because the teacher assistants are typically university students studying to be teachers of English who want an offshore experience. So during their university year, they come to Australia and are placed in schools for 1 or 2 terms. The only cost to schools for that is the homestay. So that in itself is quite a minimal expense for the wealth that the school gains by having a native speaking teacher assistant in the school to help the teacher, but also to provide that experience for the students. Teacher assistants, we've found, bring a lot of cultural value to the school because they run programs for cooking and all different sorts of cultural activities. They have special days to celebrate that culture. So we provide, if a school wants a teacher assistant and we're able to place one, that expression of interest is through WEP. So you go to the WEP website and you fill out an expression of interest. They then advise me of schools that are new to the program. And if it's for state schools, because it is departmental funding, I can offer 50%. So if the school pays for a term of homestay, I'll pay for a term. Well, our unit will pay for a term of homestay. So, to have a teacher assistant in your school for 1 semester, it effectively costs less than $3,000. So that is something that there's a little bit of a blurb about it on the brochure, and you'll also find a little snippet about it on our webpage, but feel free again to email for more information on that. Yes.
Do you have any network to work it the other way around, to send our teachers over to teaching a French, Spanish school for a month, or just the fly on the wall as a PD? Do you have a network of schools who would do that?
We would like to do that. We're trying to incorporate that PD as part of the chaperone's role, so that's in small ways, where you might have 1 or 2 chaperones. That teacher then gets that opportunity in that school for that period. There is some difficulty around it in terms of, number one, release of teachers by the schools to do that, and the ability for that to be recognised. So it is something that we want to continue to look at, and we will look at options for that. At the moment we've got those professional development opportunities for mostly the Asian languages, but it's certainly something that we could look at for the other languages as well. And certainly if you have contacts overseas that we might be able to partner with, we can certainly look at that.
I was going to say that was kind of on the lines of the DET language.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was that back now?
Yeah, question, yeah. No, Deb?
Yeah. I was one of the last ones that went on.
That's what I was trying to
fantastic.
Yeah, I
I
found
couldn't believe it when they got rid of it.
No, we were
I
all
could not believe
very
it.
disappointed about that.
I wrote letters, but got the answer back, no, it's gone.
Because that was federally funded,
Yeah, it
wasn't
was
it?
federally funded
Yeah.
for 3 weeks in January, so there was
Yeah.
no TRS to worry about or anything.
So, yes,
So
very.
it's such a worthwhile program.
Yeah, and it's sort of, I guess, the failure of the funding sort of conflicts, with the state's, commitment to actually provide professional development for language teachers. So we'll certainly look at what avenues we can provide, but it is a long process because you have to engage with your international partners, and it has to be something that both agree to and can afford to fund within the budget that's allocated as well. So, yeah. Is there any other questions? Okay, well,
So with the teacher assistants, sorry, the
Yes.
homestay families are paid.
Yes.
That's for the school to pay. Is what you're
so we pay the money to the school, and the school pays the homestay family. So the school will pay one term and we will pay the school for a second term. So the money will come from the school to the homestay family.
And you said 3,000.
So it's less. So the homestay rates are between $226 and $263 a week, I think, for depending on the region, whether you're a region or a metropolitan area. And so that's what the homestay family would receive each week for hosting a teacher assistant. It's the same rate that they get for hosting an international student. So.
Can International Services assist with connecting virtually? So I think this would be like connecting with schools online in the classroom and things like that.
Okay, so I'll let Mark answer that question because it's more to do with the work that he does with sister schools.
Yeah, I've not seen it happen, but I know some schools are doing it.
Yep.
And there's a group, or the department basically has some IT people who sit over at Cooperoo, and they can generally use the iConnect's the program that's run through the Learning Place. I don't know if anyone's used that to do sort of web conferencing and those sorts of things. And it's got a lot of capability. You can sort of share your program. Schools overseas can use it. And when you register that you're going to have a web conference, it can send a URL overseas to the school. And as long as they can sort of have, pretty good internet, then they can connect on. I know there was a state school in Toowoomba who was using it to connect with Taiwan, and I know some other schools were sort of going to be trialling to use it. So there's certainly the capability with those sorts of web conferences, obviously not this one though, there's that you can have any range of issues that occur. So I'd say increasingly, yes. I'd encourage, like for anything international, they can email us at the International Services website, and then we can put them in contact with the relevant team over at Cooperoo to sort of talk them through connecting, and they offer all the support. Some schools use, a lot of people would prefer to use Skype. The problem with Skype, I think a lot of people won't have it on their departmental network computers, is not because it's banned. I think you can, through your principal, apply to have it accessible on your network. I don't know what the process is like for that, but Skype apparently uses a lot of bandwidth, so it slows down the network and causes all these other issues. So the short answer is yes, and the longer answer I've given is that there's opportunities to do that. But I think with web conferences, you have to be willing to persist when you do encounter some dropouts and all those sorts of things. So it can be difficult, but it should hopefully be worthwhile in the long run. And some of our colleagues in Education House have sort of spoken about that's a really good way of making sure that there is that sort of frequent contact with overseas classrooms. So some schools might have exchanges that occur every other year, but those sorts of processes are really good in facilitating sort of month to month or more frequent sort of communication between students.
Well, if there's no more questions, we might wrap it up there. Thanks, Lee.
Thanks very much, Gina and Mark, for coming along.